Good afternoon. Once again, I'm Meredith Walker. I'm the Executive Director at the Texas Business Hall of Fame. Thank you so much for being here today. David Huntley, our chairman, was supposed to deliver this welcome, and he was so nice. He offered to speak at another event to actually, as a compromise on this venue space. So he's obviously delayed at that, and I know he'll want to say something at the end of this. So I hope everyone's enjoyed their lunch. Thank you so much, Brad, and to SMU for letting us use this beautiful venue. And on behalf of the Texas Business Hall of Fame, I want to extend a warm welcome, particularly to our directors who are here today. Thank you so much. To all of our alumni, to our Hall of Fame members who are joining us. And of course, I want to recognize we're lucky enough to have two of our 2024 inductees with us here today, Mike Boone and David Miller. Can y'all just give a wave? We look so forward to celebrating y'all in November, all you've done in business and how you've used your success to help your communities. That's what we're all about. So let me just move on. I'm sorry, these aren't my remarks. So before we get started, of course, I want to thank David Peacock of Messick Peacock and Associates, the sponsor for today's event. David's going to introduce our speakers. Thank God it's not me because I wasn't prepared. So Graham, Weston, John Goff, thank you so much for being here today. It's such an honor to call y'all members of our organization. Why don't y'all take a seat? And David, you want to do the introduction?
Well, thank you all for coming to this, what we believe and hope to be a very important development in the Texas Business Hall of Fame, which is when you can put two legends in a room and really talk about what makes them tick. One of the things that is really wonderful about the business that my partner and I started 9 years ago, Chris Messick, was the fact that we get to visit with entrepreneurs and work with them and be their thinking partners. And what's pretty amazing about working with entrepreneurs or anyone that's in business is that they are constantly thinking about what's next, but they're also looking at how to really take the next calculated risks. You know, there is a big difference between wealth creation and wealth preservation. Wealth creation is what these gentlemen are going to talk about, and some of the people that are throughout this audience have been able to do. Wealth preservation is the world that we are in, which is not about necessarily compromising on returns on a go-forward basis. We believe we've created a modern advisory firm to be able to handle that more effectively. However, you look at there's two different skill sets. But today, it is really about celebrating capitalism, and it's celebrating, especially in a wonderful state like Texas, so many great things that we have going for us. And when you look at these two individuals, you see really extraordinary individuals that took calculated risks in their life. And so I look forward to hearing about what they have to say. So let me give some formal remarks specifically related to who these individuals are, of those that probably already know enough about them. Graham Weston is a longtime entrepreneur. After attending Texas A&M University, Weston ventured into the world of real estate and bought it and developed Weston Center, which became the prime location for business to establish a headquarters. In 1998, he took a chance on an unusual business idea and presented by three young computer geeks and founded Rackspace Hosting, serving as a CEO until 2006 when he accepted the position of chairman. In the same year, Fortune Small Business voted Weston Best Boss. He has also received the Regional Entrepreneur of the Year from Ernst & Young, and Graham Weston is passionate about urban development, information technology education, and entrepreneurship. He co-founded Geekdom, a collaborative workspace and startup accelerator, and the 80/20 Foundation, which furthers Weston's goals through significant charitable gifts and endowments. Today, Graham is going to be interviewing our honored guest, John Goff. John is from Fort Worth. I did ask him if he got an allergic reaction when he came over to Dallas, and he did say he did get a little bit of a titch. So we certainly welcome anyone from Fort Worth over here. I'm not sure the feeling is mutual over there, but that's another issue. His family office, Goff Capital, invests in multiple sectors, including wellness, aerospace, energy, gaming, entertainment, and real estate. Among his holdings are Canyon Ranch, a leading brand in health and wellness, and Crescent Energy, where he serves as the chairman of both companies. Additionally, John is a chairman and principal owner of Crescent Real Estate, which has assets under management, development, and investment capacity of over $10 billion. John began his career in 1987 when he joined renowned investor Richard Rainwater. In the early 90s, John co-founded Crescent Real Estate with Richard. where he designed the strategy and orchestrated the acquisitions leading to its initial public offering in May 1994. As CEO of Crescent, he led the company's growth at approximately $500 million at its IPO to $6.5 billion upon its sale to Morgan Stanley in August 2007. Brilliant timing. During Crescent's 13 years as a public company, John provided its shareholders with 15.4% compounded annual return and over $2.5 billion in cash dividends. In November 2009, John reacquired Crescent in partnership with Barclays, and in December 2017, he purchased Barclays' interest. I think he's pretty good at timing. So, with that, I turn it over to you guys. Thank you.
John, I've been looking forward to sitting across from you for months and wondered what I was going to talk to you about. I have so much to ask. As I flew up on Southwest this morning, I was thinking about how my life may have been different if just one thing had happened. Back in 1994, 93 or 94, I got a phone call from Richard Rainwater's office asking to come and meet with him. And of course, I was there to meet both you and Richard to discuss the creation of what became a Crescent REIT, the Crescent REIT. And I think about you were asking me to put my building into the REIT to be one of the founding buildings along with the Crescent, which is, of course, a huge compliment. But just how my life may have been different financially would have been a lot better if I had done that. But I think, timing is just an amazing thing. To go back to that time in your life when you were in your mid-30s, really in a very different place. What was the vision that you were trying to accomplish at that time, at the very beginning of Crescent?
Well, first of all, I think things turned out okay for you, Graham. I don't think you missed much. I was so fortunate to be able to work for Richard Rainwater, and what I learned from him more than anything was to be a contrarian investor. So we looked for theaters where everyone was exiting the theater and we could go in and invest versus trying to join the herd. And in the early 90s, two things happened. One, I had the benefit of helping Roger Staubach, who had some bad real estate investments and was in trouble, and he'd come to us, looking for some help. And Richard said, I'm not going to bail you out, but I will lend this young guy, John Goff, to you to see if he can help figure things out. So over a course of a year or so, I helped Roger kind of unwind out of some bad real estate investments. But in that, what I found was an incredible business that he had that was very small at the time. It was about $5 million in revenues, doing $1 million in cash flow. And it was the tenant rep business before tenant rep was even really known. And Roger was incredible at it because he could open any door in corporate America, maybe other than Washington, D.C., or the Redskin territory. But I said, Roger, I'd like to make an investment in the company. And this is when I had very little capital, so I was looking for little things that had a lot of potential upside. And so anyway, I negotiated to buy 20% of the company for $1 million. And of course, Richard wanted a big part of that, but I got my share. Well, that fast forward many years, I was on the board with Roger, kind of helped him, create the strategy and grow the business, at least as a board member. And ultimately sold for over $700 million to Jones Lang LaSalle. But what was really important about that is I got this insight as to all this migration of companies into Texas and into the major markets of Texas. And at the same time, we were the most overbuilt part of the nation. So you could buy newly minted office buildings at a fraction for what they were built for. And it was my view that virtually everything was going to be for sale. It was either going to get foreclosed on or going to have to go through some kind of an auction process or be sold. So I went to Richard and I said, Richard, we had just casual lunches and we would brainstorm ideas. And I had an idea on one sheet of a yellow pad. He didn't have the patience to look at more than one piece of paper. And it was just the outline of a simple strategy. I said, I want to go try to buy the best real estate assets in the state And I don't know what we do with this, but I just think it's a really interesting time to do it. And I think we can buy them at, a fraction of what ultimate value will be. And there's a lot of upside into this. And so Richard said, great, you got to put up your entire net worth, and I'll allocate, a certain amount of capital. So off I went. But there was really nothing else at that time interesting to do. This real estate opportunity was the single most interesting thing. We had done some interesting things in the oil and gas sector and in healthcare, and so I was very fortunate to have Richard there to support it, and it was just an amazing moment in time. Scary though, it wasn't clear that this was going to work, but I knew that we could buy things at a fraction of what they were built for.
Timing has had a big role in your career. That is, you not only were there buying, you had a big wallet at the time, having gone public, were able to buy a lot of properties, great properties around the country, but then you also sold at a perfect time. Tell us about what you were looking at in 2007.
Well, leading into 2007, first of all, I was the largest shareholder in the boardroom at that time, other than Richard. And Richard was very deferential to me. He would basically, he wanted to do whatever I wanted to do. And we were at a moment in time where every single asset we owned was getting an offer, even though it wasn't for sale. So there was incredible liquidity in the markets. Pricing did not make sense to me. There was nothing for us to go buy. And so we were really just sitting on the sidelines as observers. And so I went to the board, and we had a complicated business. We had a lot. It wasn't just office. We had, one of the largest cold storage companies in the nation. We had lots of hotels. We had development properties. It was a complicated business. But we had an interesting natural buyer in Morgan Stanley, who I was very close to. We had done a lot of banking with them. They helped take us public. And they had become a very large real estate investor themselves, entity called Mesref, and they wanted to buy us. They liked our team. They liked the assets. So I said, this is a time to sell. There wasn't anything to go buy. I didn't see growing the company as a smart thing to do. And so fortunately, I was able to get that transaction done when we did. And I count my blessings every day on that timing. It was amazing.
And then 18 months later, the person who bought it from you wanted to sell it back to you.
Yeah, it's interesting. Morgan Stanley, they actually didn't make a bad buy. They just simply over-leveraged. So the $6.5 billion, I wouldn't argue, in hindsight, maybe it was too much, but they only put $1.1 billion of equity up on a $6.5 billion acquisition. And the real estate business just can't operate on that kind of leverage. You know that. So they had borrowed $3.7 billion from Barclays Bank, and Barclays came to me in the summer of 2009 and said, hey, do you want to buy your old company back? And I said, sure, but you're not going to like the price. And through a lot of negotiation, I was actually at the time looking to create a real estate business with KKR. And so KKR said, go do it. We'll back you. This is right down our power alley. And Henry Kravis was all over me to do it. But ultimately, I was able to negotiate a deal with Barclays where I didn't need outside capital. I could do it off my own balance sheet. And right place, right time.
Have you been at the right place the wrong time?
Oh, many times.
Will you tell us one of those stories?
I would say early in my career, we had one really interesting business, which was a retail shoe business that I was able to, it's a long story, but I was able to negotiate, frankly, too good of a deal. And so we ended up being, the deal that I was able to negotiate for us was better than what the management team got. And so I learned a big lesson that you needed to be 100% aligned with your management team. And that led to a lot of issues. and ultimately to a failure of the company. But, we went from a tiny company to a big valuation to a company that was over leveraged and didn't work. So, I think structurally I learned a lot. Alignment is critical. Having the right team and not over leveraging. When you leverage, you're giving an option to a lender, and it's, you need to take those options seriously.
And of course, things like COVID can come along and completely upset the apple cart. How did your world change during COVID?
Well, we were talking before this. Honestly, COVID was the scariest time of my career. I really do believe that. It was much worse than the great financial crisis. I went into that with a lot of liquidity because I'd sold Crescent, and I was able to buy it back. And so COVID was really scary. I found myself reading about all kinds of previous pandemics and what happened to the economies and different parts of the world. How long did it take to get through them? And it was uncharted waters. And so, I was strapped to my seat every day, talking to all the different businesses and, literally looking at my liquidity and all these businesses that I was responsible for. And, okay, I can get through this for a year, for 2 years, but, beyond that, we may end up with a problem. So how long is this going to really last? And how do we manage our way through it? And it was a challenging time.
How has the world changed? How do you see the world having changed because of COVID?
Well, I think confronted with another situation like that, I think we're going to handle it. I think we learned a lot. I hope we did as a country, as the world. I think we'll handle it totally differently than we did this time. But what COVID did is it really upset our whole financial system because we have, when I add it up, I think there's $7 trillion of programs just in the U.S. that we're probably only halfway through getting the money for. And that liquidity is what's driving a lot of turmoil in the financial markets today and having a lot of impact. I mean, it's really tough still for us to get financing on real estate projects. It's opening up a little, but it's still tough. We're having to really lean on relationships to get the financing that we need. And fortunately, we've got good liquidity and, we're able to fight the battle. But our economy's got a lot of issues. The top lines look so good because, we've got 7 big stocks that are driving the markets higher and higher. And so, the headlines look great, but below the headlines, there's a lot of turmoil in the market. This is a very complicated environment we're in. And, we have no discipline in Washington, frankly, on either side. It's not a political statement. It's just the fact of the matter.
Do you think the office market's going to come back? That's certainly you have a big investment there.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, we went into this having sold virtually everything we owned in the office sector other than the very best assets. So like the Crescent in Dallas. I love that asset. It's never been leased at this level and at the rates that it's getting now. So there's a real bifurcation that's occurred in the office market. You've got the haves and the have-nots, and it's the very high-end, newly minted, or well-positioned assets like the Crescent that are doing really, really well, very well. And then beyond that, it just like falls off a cliff. And so there are a lot of buildings that, I frankly don't know what's going to happen with them. We talk about apartment conversions and all that, but there's a lot more hype in that than there is reality. There will be some of it, but there's going to have to be a lot of buildings that will ultimately be razed and the land will go to other use.
But simultaneously, you're doing a big development in Fort Worth.
Mm-hmm.
I think you and I've been with my partners buying up 35 acres of downtown San Antonio, trying to rebuild and reinvigorate the core. I got a call from our mayor, Julian Castro, to lead a city planning project back in the early 2010s. We called SA 2020. It sounds like the mayor of Fort Worth, asked you to do the same thing. I was always skeptical of these city planning projects, but it sounds like both of us really gained an interest in our cities from that process.
Yeah, I had no business taking this on because I was so darn busy trying to keep everything afloat that I was, responsible for. But the mayor called me and said, hey, I'd love for you to co-chair this organization called Fort Worth Now, and the purpose is to get us through the pandemic and out stronger economically. And so I naively said yes. Look, I arrived in Fort Worth in 1981 with a U-Haul truck with all my possessions and zero negative net worth. And Fort Worth has been a wonderful city for me. I've started and grown several businesses there, and so I feel like I owe the city a lot. So I took this on, and it was a lot more than I bargained for. I'd like to think I don't do anything halfway, so I dove in head first, and I had a study commissioned by a big consulting firm to just kind of give us a snapshot of Fort Worth and what our real issues were. The number one issue was we were the largest city in the U.S. without a Tier 1 research university. We have great schools. TCU is a wonderful school, but it's not, a research-related school. We have Texas Wesleyan and Tarleton, but we did not have Tier 1 research. Nearby, UT, Arlington, and I had on numerous occasions trying to get UT to move more into Fort Worth, and because I'm a TSIP, and to no avail. They're stronghold in Arlington, and of course, big stronghold here in Dallas. But I was very fortunate to convince John Sharp and A&M to build upon what was just a law school and create an urban campus in downtown, and it's going to be a game changer for the city.
Well, as an Aggie, I celebrate the new campus in Fort Worth. And
I had to cross that line. It was tough.
Well, and I did in San Antonio. I did the same with UT San Antonio. So we're even on that one.
Yeah.
But it seems like that is there somehow you've been living in Fort Worth, a loyal Fort Worth resident. But a lot of but all of a sudden, your focus on the city was changed, amplified. What did that?
Well, like I said, I feel like I owe the city a lot. Fort Worth, different than Dallas. It's more bite-sized. We're roughly 1 million people, but we're the fastest growing city in the nation on a per capita basis right now. And I felt like I had a kind of a bully pulpit to operate from in a way. And so I felt like, there's a reason I'm in this position, and I need to try to do something great for the city. And when I really looked at the list of all the things we needed to address, if I could convince A&M to build a significant campus, and this be their major urban campus, kind of John Sharp's swan song, because he'll be on his way out at some point, probably in this decade. He's an incredible guy, by the way, just amazing work. I didn't even know him. It was a cold call, and did a presentation, and during the presentation he leaned over and said, I love this, I'm going to do it. And we've become good friends. I was part of his wedding, and he's an amazing guy, and when he says he's going to do something, he'll do it.
Yes, welcome. The Aggies have arrived in Fort Worth. Yes. Also, a lawyer friend of mine said that the law school was the top in the state for the number of percentage of graduates of the bar exam. So
Yep.
it's amazing what has happened in a very short period of time.
Yeah, Bobby Audier, who's the dean of the law school, is amazing. I affectionately describe him as a BB in a beer can. The guy's he's a bundle of energy, lots of ideas. And if it weren't for Bobby, I probably wouldn't have come up with this idea about A&M, because he came to me one day, I never met the guy. And it was kind of during the beginning of the pandemic, and he said, hey, I want to show you what we're up to. And I said, well, I didn't go to law school. Don't really have any interest in the law school, other than I'm glad you're here. It's great. But he showed me all these blocks they owned, and I said, let's go climb up on top of the building. So we made our way up to the very top of the building, and I looked around. And I don't know if y'all have seen 1883, Taylor Sheridan's show, but the opening scene is in Hell's Half Acre in Fort Worth. That's where this is. That was Hell's Half Acre. But it's just this blank canvas. And, you know, as a real estate guy, I look at it and I go, wow, there's no reason this can't be a major university downtown campus. So here we are.
That may be your biggest move yet. That's my prediction. So we are about to ask the audience to offer questions, but I want to get you on your soapbox for a moment. You and I have talked about this move toward remote work. I think one of the things that happened during COVID is we were forced to work remotely, and now we're still suffering some of the effects of that. In my building in San Antonio, our office population is only 60% of what it was pre-COVID. There are a lot of young people in the Hall of Fame network here today, starting their careers or middle in their careers. I'm sure they're tempted by remote work. I mean, it's very convenient for them. What do you think it means to all of your businesses have started through big ideas? What does remote work mean to the future of business as you see it, and what advice would you give to the young people facing that question?
Well, let me try to be concise, because I could go on for a while on this, because I have very strong opinions about it. What did Jamie Dimon just say? I love remote work, but just not here. And, you know, when I look back through our own remote work that we had to execute for a while, let's say at Crescent, well, all of our companies, we got reasonably good at processing things, you know, making sure tasks were being done and on time and on budget and all that. But when I reflect back on it, not one great idea came out of a Zoom call. Not one. Nothing actionable that was like, wow, that's a big idea. Let's go do that. But yet, that happens fairly frequently in the office, and it's this spontaneous, you know, call it water cooler talk. I mean, I've got a little trading room in the family office, and I go in there and just hang out, and I talk to the team. You know, what are you seeing? What's going on in the market? Tell me what's happening in the oil sector, and where are bonds trading? And you get this lively interaction that's impossible. I can't replicate it on a Zoom call. I mean, I still have trouble getting the darn thing to operate right. And I don't believe in it. If you're really looking to grow, prosper, grow a company, really be smart, fast, agile, you're not going to do that on Zoom calls. Can you process things? Absolutely. And look, there's a lot of people in the world that aren't trying to go do what we do or what most people in the room, you know, are trying to do. And so work from home may work fine, but I'm not a big proponent. You know, going back to the office business real quick, when I go around and I talk to CEOs of companies, their biggest issue right now is attracting and retaining talent, really good talent. And the only way, the one way they do that is to have great office space that's very inviting, that's lively, that's got great light, good energy, and then there's a lot of amenities around. So everything we're doing in the office sector now, we make sure it has all those attributes, because that's what companies need to attract and retain talent. And that's why there's such a broad bifurcation now in the office business. But getting back to your question, I think maybe it works okay for like accounting firms, legal work at a level, certainly call centers, things like that. I mean, that was already done remotely. But if you're really trying to grow a business, I'm not smart enough to do that on the phone or on a computer screen.
You know, I feel the same. I feel old-fashioned in advocating the way the world used to be, right? But I think that it's very easy for there to be two classes of people, as in people who are who are ambitious enough to schlep to the office and to deal with the inconveniences, and then those who are on Zoom who may just find themselves not in the front of the mind of the boss, not spurring the ideas of the boss. The trouble is that convenience, that lifestyle is really nice. We all enjoy it.
Yeah.
We have so much flexibility that we didn't used to have. So what do you say to the person who is today working 4 days out of 5 remotely?
I think it's going to start showing up when 5 years from now, 3 years from now, you're going to see those people distinguish themselves that have been spending time in the office and engaging with the rest of the team versus those that are trying to do everything remotely. 3 months ago, we had, for us, a big investment banking assignment that we were trying to find the right firm to award it to. And we interviewed, we got it down to 3 firms. Of the 3 firms, 2 wanted to have remote meetings. One said, no, we don't do remote meetings. We're going to come into your office. Well, guess who got the assignment? So the competitive pressure is going to change this evolution. There's no doubt there's going to be more work from home than there was before, but I think it's going to be mitigated somewhat.
So one boss told me that any job that can be done remotely may be done from India.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of truth to it.
yeah, I don't disagree.
Let's open up the floor to questions. Any questions? Yes.
Hey, curious, thinking about your development downtown Fort Worth, spending a lot of time in uptown Dallas with some of the Crescent extension apartments, 23 Springs next door, and then some more future development roads further down the chain. How do you think about, from an urban planning standpoint, like the density or the impact of that on traffic, maybe impacting some of the attractability of living in that area, given that being around the building?
Yeah, are you referring to our Crescent development in the Cultural District? Oh, in Uptown Dallas. So,
Sorry, I was thinking about, like, when you think about doing these big, like, downtown, kind of high-density developments, how do you think about the mobility impact on attracting people to work there?
well, we do studies on that, to make sure that what we're doing is not going to be too adverse to that part of the community. But it requires a lot of work. In Uptown, you may be referring to the new announcement that we're going to kind of put what I like to call the crown on the queen of Uptown, which I'm very affectionate about the Crescent development because it kind of gave me my start, for the company. And that development, fortunately we have all the parking we need for it, so it's a matter of just coming out of the ground. But we do a lot of work on traffic impact, walkability. I actually think it will enhance the area because we're going to be able to make a lot of improvements to the streetscape there and to the walkability in that area.
John, there are a lot of people here who are young, didn't know Richard, as you and I did. Talk about a little bit about what characteristics he had that made him so successful.
Well, Richard was just a magical person. I met him working out. We worked out at the same time at the same health club downtown, and we had a lot in common. Kind of both grew up with nothing, and his kids, while he was older than me, his kids had kind of it was girl, boy, just like mine, same age dispersion, etc. So we just had a lot in common just on a personal level. And then he was chief investment officer at the Bass family, and for whatever reason, he thought I was somebody he needed to have, at his side working on things. And so he asked, I was working at KPMG, Pete Marwick at the time, for me to be assigned and to him. And so I got to do all kinds of crazy engagements that many of which probably weren't totally authorized by the firm, but he just wanted somebody there to help him with analysis. And so anyway, he really got to know me. And when he left the Basses in 1986, he called me and said, I want you to come join me. And I did. And it was a tiny little office. And, you know, Richard left the Bass family with a lot of money back then, but not as much as a lot of people think. You know, it was far less than $100 million. And we had this, he was just an amazing guy, and that he was able to attract, set me aside, he was able to attract incredible talent. And at that, there was a moment in the late 80s, where, again, set me aside. We had Mort Meyerson, who had, you know, sold the EDS to GM, and he left, so he was kind of looking for his next thing to do. Rick Scott, who's now the senator, was in our office creating a healthcare company. Ken Hirsch was creating an oil and gas investment company. We had Eddie Lampert, who came to us from Goldman Sachs and was creating, you know, a massive hedge fund. It was like lightning in a bottle. It was an amazing office. Not that big, but just the energy level was incredible. And Richard was the cornerstone to that. He was able to, he was very whimsical, fun. He did have a dark side, you know, which I got to experience, where he could be really, really tough and difficult. But man, he was smart and just could see around corners like nobody I've ever met.
You talked about remote working remotely, and now you're talking about mentoring, right? Can you explain that maybe to some of the younger people, why it's important to be in an office because you don't get mentoring on Zoom, and how it rainwater meetings to
Yeah, well, the Rainwater office back then is probably a great example of how just engagement created lots of business opportunities. You know, you never knew who was going to be in the office. It was like every day was like a pickup basketball game. That's the way I describe it. You know, it would be just David Geffen would be in, and then it was Michael Milken, and then it was just one after another, just big names. But it was that spontaneous engagement that gave rise to incredible opportunity. And whether it's the magic of that office or in your own your own office that you're working in now, it doesn't have to be as crazy as it was at Rainwater Inc. It's that personal engagement and just spontaneous engagement that, in my opinion, is what creates ideas. I just have a hard time reacting passionately. I'm a very passionate person, and I get very passionate in the office, particularly if somebody has a bad idea. I mean, we're very vocal. That's a bad idea. I like people to tell me that's a stupid idea. Forget it. But it's just hard to do that on the phone. So I'm a big believer in engagement. We didn't stay out of the office but maybe 2 months, and we were all back in. We said, the heck with this.
And they'll never really know the great ideas that didn't get hatched. I think everyone knows the commute is a hassle, parking is a hassle, compared to staying at home with, in your pajamas.
Yeah.
But the ideas that never get hatched, it's hard. You have to truly believe that that benefit will come.
Yeah, I challenged our team the other day when we got into this debate about work from home, because we still have people who want to do that, but we've kind of drawn the line. But somebody said, when I made the comment that nothing big came out of these calls, they said, well, we got such and such financing done. I said, that's just processing. That's not a great idea. I mean, that's just us doing our job. We did a great financing. That's not going to change the world.
Yes, sir.
AI seems to be the beginning of changing the world. How are you investing in AI in your business place?
Well, we're in the early stages of it, but we have embraced it in a lot of our businesses, even on the real estate side. But I'd say we're learning, like probably everybody in the room, what it really means. How do you use it? When should you not rely on it? We even have, I know we'll use AI to like proofread documents, but we have one person who is incredibly good at looking at a write-up and knowing whether it was generated by AI. And I've kind of learned to pick up on that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but as investors, we got to rely on what's up here and not, totally AI to make those decisions. But it's clearly going to be a very impactful tool to us in a lot of different ways. We're using it a lot at Canyon Ranch, both on a kind of a diagnostic side as well as engaging with our customers. But we're at early innings.
John, take us back to the COVID when you were talking about how you were really very stressed about that. Mm-hmm. Also referencing when you came to Fort Worth and you didn't have anything. Reference those 2 points as it relates to how you think about taking calculated risk at this stage in your career. At that stage, you got nothing to lose. At this stage, you have a lot to lose, but you're still continuing to make speculations, make specific decisions. How are you looking at those two worlds?
Well, Richard always simplified things by saying there are two investments: get rich and stay rich. I would say the bulk of what I do is in the stay rich side now, but I do have 2 sons involved in the business, one in the real estate company, another runs the family office. And, they're both in the get rich business. But they have to, they're more and more involved in stewarding, the assets of the family. And so they're having to learn both sides. And it's a constant debate. They're wanting to lead us into some new and perhaps a little more creative investments in areas that I'm not comfortable with, and so it's an interesting intellectual debate, or maybe intellectual is too strong of a word. Interesting debate between father and son, at lunches and just spontaneous about what are we going to lean into? Right now we're really leaning into trying to grow what we have, because we have a lot of businesses that are requiring a lot of our capital for growth, and Canyon Ranch being one, the aerospace business being one, and we're trying to feed those businesses. So that is a constant debate.
Yes.
Having that contrarian investing mindset in mind, what in this environment, what business or industry are you most excited about or have?
What businesses am I most excited about? Well, I'm excited about. I love business. I don't think I'm ever going to retire, because I worry what's going to happen to me if I do that. Everybody I know that truly retires, it seems like the wheels fall off within months or a year. And, I'm not going to go to the country club and play cards. That's just not me. So, I'm really excited about our real estate platform. We've got a great team. It's growing a lot. And this is a really interesting environment that has a lot of disruption, not like we had in the early 90s or mid-90s. It's not going to be at that level. In that period, we were buying assets by the pound. You can't do that today. But we are seeing interesting opportunities. So we're really leaning into that. We're in the process of raising our 4th fund, and our funds are totally different than, we don't raise mountains of capital, we raise smaller amounts. And that's a whole nother subject. But Canyon Ranch, I am incredibly interested in. We have a wonderful, relatively new CEO who is just dynamic as everything. and I'm very excited about that. We announced a partnership with Vici Properties, a big public company. Needle in a haystack. I mean, we were looking to raise capital, and I just got this call from a friend, and again, engagement on a personal level. Could have never happened on a phone call or a Zoom call. But Ed Petoniak, who runs Vici Properties, $50 billion REIT, just happened to be in town, said, hey, I want to come see you. Met with him, and within months, we had worked out a $2 billion of capital to go grow our Canyon Ranch business. Never would have happened on a phone or on a computer, ever. It was the personal engagement. And what an amazing, like say, a needle in a haystack. I would have never found that capital. And that came through an introduction, a relationship I had at Morgan Stanley. Said, hey, you need to meet this guy. He really wants to meet you. And so, you connect the dots, and wow, never would have thought I would have a partner that willing to give me $2 billion to go grow a business. So I'm very excited about that.
As our closing question, I want to ask you, you don't look like like an owner of a health spa to me. I just never would have thought that you would be
that's
owner.
Oh my gosh.
Look, you're in good shape. No, I'm saying, did you ever think you would own a health spa? You look healthy and trim, of course. But given your background, being the owner of the most prominent health spa in the country, that has to be something that was unexpected to you.
Yeah, well, it was back in '97. Richard always struggled with his weight, and so he found Canyon Ranch, went out there. He called me, he always affectionately called me Johnny. He says, hey, Johnny, you got to come out to this place. It's amazing. I've lost 10 pounds. I feel great. Come out here. I want you to meet the owners, and you need to figure out how to buy this thing. So I did go out. I loved it. And long story short, we made an investment. We didn't buy the whole thing. We frankly never had control until it became part of Crescent. And it's a long story. We did all kinds of different gymnastics on the financial side. But long story short, back about 4 years ago, I bought out the founders, and I bought out Barclays, my partner, and got 100% control. And so now we've got this incredible brand with, in a sector that is growing like crazy. It's wellness is a very overused term, probably more overused than farm-to-table dining. It's just so. Anyway, I'm super excited about it, and there's a lot to go do in that sector.
Well, I hope you get a sale out of today.
And it sounds like I need to work on a few things.
You look great. You look great. You just haven't had enough plastic surgery to be qualified to be a proper, in the wellness business. But
I'm almost 69. How old are you?
You're good. I think. Look, we are out of time. So let me take one more question. Yes.
Well, I'm really interested in the Canyon Ranch situation. I'm born and raised in Minnesota, so I've been going for a long time, and I want to know what's next for this multi-billion-dollar investment.
Well, they gave us capital into the company, and they took no ownership for it. It's just a preferred. They gave us $150 million in preferred. They are financing Tucson and Lenox, our two what I call Wellspring resorts, the original ones. And then they are financing a development. I bought 400 acres on Lake Travis outside of Austin in Spicewood, and we're building, it's got 2 miles of lake frontage, amazing piece of property, and we're building a Lake Flato designed resort there. It's really weird. When you think back, we're all in the state, when you look at the state of Texas, there's not like a great resort. I mean, we have decent ones, but I think we're going to build the first great resort, and we're coming out of the ground now. And it will be a new evolution for Canyon Ranch. It'll be done a little differently than Tucson and Lenox. It'll be a place you can just come and hang out and have a great time, or if you want to go work on something physically or emotionally or whatever, those things will be there for you. But it's going to be a beautiful piece of property. We'll also have, residential component. And then what they want us to do, where part of our objective is to try to find existing resorts around the country, if not the world, that we could buy and convert to Canyon Ranch. And so they've kind of given us I won't say a blank check, but they have to approve it, but kind of a line of credit to go acquire those assets with. So it's a wonderful partnership.
John, thank you. Thanks for
Thank
sharing
you.
your thoughts.
Thanks, everyone, for coming. I'm David Huntley, and I'm the chair of the Texas Business Hall of Fame for the 2024 year. And John, Graham, how insightful. That was just wonderful, great. Let's give him another round of applause. Thanks for coming, and have a good day.